In the same fashion, if I go further, so we will learn about function overwriting. So which is a concept which is very unique in languages like Python, where we treat it like a first class object. Means everything is treated as an object in Python. So let me give like a very simple way to understand this concept. If I define like a is equal to 10, then if I say a equal to 56, then what will be the latest value of a? Is it 10 or 56? Whichever is the latest value will be there, right? The same logic will be executed in Python. If I have defined like two functions, say if I have defined two functions, addition, which is taking 3 arguments, and it is doing the summation. Similarly, addition of two arguments, it is doing a summation. Now tell me which one will be there. So means obviously the latest one is what? Function with 2 arguments. So when you make a call with 2 arguments, it will work perfectly. Did you see? It is working the answer. But sir, what happens when you give like a function with 3 arguments? Say, if I give like the function with 3 arguments, then it will throw an error. So did you see that function will take 2 arguments, but you gave 3 arguments? Did you observe that that is not the case, right? So in fact, like we have given, but it doesn't work like that. So to prove that this works in this way, let me take the example by doing the things in a reverse order again. So this time if I pass like a function with 2 arguments and 3 arguments together, again I'm passing the 2 functions again. This time 2 arguments I defined first and 3 arguments I defined next. Then I can make a call for the 3 arguments, but not for the 2 arguments case. With this, it is clear what is the concept of function overwriting means. When you define 2 functions with the same name, but different signatures or different logic. Sometimes you can have the same signature, but you may have different logic. So whatever may be, whatever the function you define the last, so that will be there present. Because Python is a object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented doesn't mean that every time we should work with classes. We are ultimately working with objects. So that is what I want to prove. Whereas if you go for the languages like C++, so if you have defined 2 two methods, so then if you are making a call with 2 arguments, it will go to the 2 arguments case. It will go, if you are making a 3 arguments, it will go to 3 argument case. But that's not the case with Python. Next, going further about the default arguments means how to solve this problem. When you have 2 arguments also it should work, 3 arguments also it should work. To address that only we have default arguments. So the default argument means like, okay, you have a problem with these things. So when you have this 2 arguments case, 3 arguments case, I will copy the same things here, but I will make a small difference. So for a 2 arguments case, if you pass 2 arguments, it will take as it is. As the logic is same between. So for the 3 arguments I pass, I am defining one variable here in the definition. This is called as a default argument. What do you mean by that, sir? Means when you pass 2 arguments, so when you define the same function twice, what will happen? Only the latest will be stored. Now for this latest function, if you pass 2 arguments also it will work, 3 arguments also it will work. Why? Because for the third argument you may mark it as 0. So now if I make a call, clear Python 009, did you see that it is working in both cases? Sir, why sir you have defined it as a 0? Because it makes no difference, right? When you have 2 values, if you add 0, it makes no difference. That's why I have taken like that. But if your logic is having a different thing, you can have like that. So, and also I told that functions are like a first class objects. Means even function also will have a DAR. Hope you remember, right? Functions also have a DAR. Means when you make a call, you get all the list of attributes. Did you see there are no direct attributes, all like indirect attributes, underscore attributes. So within those underscore attributes, if I can replace few, you will understand about size of name, and defaults. For any function when you defined, if you have defined these things, you will get it. So what is the size? I told about the size, right? So how much memory it is occupying. So name, what is the name you have given for the function? And what are the defaults? So there is only one default. Fine. Now, another example, if I want to implement for like a hello world, say like, I have a scenario, same to like this edition, where I have defined a function without any argument, it works, hello world. But when you give like a one argument, it should say like hello, that particular thing. So, but if you define like this, only the latest will work and it will not work for the others. Then how to solve this problem for both of them? Means you can see hello, I will write the same hello, and we need to have the name. And when you don't give the name, what should be the default value? World. Then I will define that world here. So I do, and I do the same print statement, and I define this name. So what are the statement is there, I give it. Now the point is like, if I don't give the name, it will do this. If I do name also, it works. So if I say hello or hello Python, in both the cases, it will work perfectly. Did you see hello world and hello Python? So that is the beauty of it. And similarly, so if I go for like some more thing, let's take a very good example. Generally, if I take the example of some kind of a statement where I want to define something, see here, statement creator, I gave like age, name, qualification, like that I gave some few things. So whatever the user is giving, I want to print those values. So this is my objective. So I don't even give a function call, but just I will make a call. So when I'm executing, it is throwing an error. Did you observe what is the error it is saying? So whenever you are using defaults, this is the most important point you need to remember. Non-default argument follows the default argument. Means first we should have like non-default arguments, then we should have like a default arguments. Now in this case, what happened is like, you have executed it in that way. So what are the non-default arguments? This is the only non-default argument. So non-default argument should come first and the default argument should be in the next. So why sir, what is it matter? That is the rules of this language. So default arguments you should place every time at the end only. We should not ask directly. So now if I ask the same statement, it will not throw any error. And if I make a call to this, so no matter how I make, it will execute in all the cases. If you observe in this case scenario, so if I give like a call without any arguments, then it will throw an error because there is minimum one value we need to pass. But if I give that minimum one value, it will take to the name, but the remaining two will be defaults. But if I give like two values, the remaining whatever you give, it will take it. So for mandatory arguments, you need to pass the value. For the default arguments, if you pass, it will take. If not, it will take whatever is there. So in this case, you observe it is taking like 28. It doesn't matter like it is name or something. Data type, it doesn't check, I told, right? Whatever the mandatory arguments, how many are there? Those many are you passing or not? It will check. If you pass, it will work like that. So this is all about the default arguments. So next, after this default arguments, there is one biggest problem whenever you are using default arguments. This is what you need to be aware when you are working, called as the leakage issue. So you remember I told about the leakage issue when we are working with the lists. So where I told about hard copy and shallow copy. At the time I told. Similarly, if I go further in terms of the leakage, so here you can understand. Say I have some kind of anti-pattern. What do you mean by an anti-pattern, sir? Let me take a small example. Um, That is like an anti-pattern. Anti-pattern means pattern which should not used. Let's say I defined a function called as extend a list. Extend list is my function which is taking a value and it is taking like some kind of list. So whatever the value you give, it will try to append to that list. My list dot append of that value, and it will return that my list. Okay. You see in this example, I am writing an extend list which will take a value and it will append to that thing and it will return that list. This is what I wrote. Now, if I do like an extend list of say 123 and I pass some list, then what will happen? So it should work like that, right? Say like I am defining some logic and I'm assigning to something because I'm returning, right? I should assign Python 010. Okay, you see here, I got the result. Similarly, if I pass like one list with some values, so if I pass something else also, it will work. But what if I don't pass any argument? In that case also, it should work. It doesn't work like that, right? To make it to work, you generally define it like a list. Then what happens? It works in both the scenarios, right? This is a fair idea, so you are good enough. Say you instead of 123, maybe like I'm passing 10. If I execute, it will say 10. Now let me go for like one more step. If I pass this time, like, so extend of like A, I gave like a, then what is expected? In the first case, you gave like an empty list, you got 123. Second case, you gave single thing, you got like 10. Third case, you expect like a only. So that is what you expect, a single A. But to your astonishment, it will give like A and a 10 also. What is this, sir? Why it is happening like this? So the reason is being that whenever you are creating every time, for the first time, the list is created. So means like whenever this function is created, that's the object, for the first time, it will try to create that value. So when the function definition is created, it will create like an object, right? When the object creation is happening, what are all the defaults are there? Those also will be created. And subsequently, every time the same thing will be used. If I execute, did you understand one interesting point? When I gave explicitly something, so what is the address location? Something else. Whereas in the second two cases, I didn't give anything. So it should use the default value. So did you see that in both the cases, address location is same? So this is called as a leakage problem. So then what is the solution to it, sir? The solution to it is like, so instead of you defining it outside, you define inside. Means like, so here the problem is that you have defined it as a list. So to address this problem, instead of defining it like a list there, you define it like a none. So if I define like a none, will it work? Means no. So because we cannot append to a none, right? So if I execute, it will throw an error. So to address this problem, okay, so this is syntax error. If I execute, it will throw an error because for none time it cannot add. So within that you do. So if not my list, so then you say like, my list is equal to like empty. So if I execute right now, did you see that it is working? And each one is separate. Did you see that it was is 10 only? This was A only. And each one is separate address location. And also this can be further modified. Means if you have this kind of pattern, we can use like my list is equal to my list or empty. This is one kind of short circuiting method for like, so Boolean short circuiting. Hope you remember about the Boolean short circuiting in the Boolean I told. So what it happens, sir, means when the my list is Boolean true, so Boolean list when will become true? When it is not empty, or like if it is not a none. So if it is good, it will take as it is. If not, it will take an empty list. So that is a shortcutting rule. So that also works in the same way. With this, I told about the anti-patterns when we are working also. Now, okay, sir, for one argument you can do, two arguments you can give, three arguments you can give defaults. What if you want to pass like 10 arguments, 20 arguments, you want to work for any number of arguments? For that case, there is one thing called as variadic functions. So, sir, will there be any such functions in reality? Yes. If I take the example of a print function, if you see the print function, generally you might have worked on print multiple times. You can work with like multiple number of values or single value, or if you don't give any value also, it works in all the cases, right? What if you want to create that kind of function which can accept any number of arguments? So for that case, we need to define a function. Say like I am defining a function like this. Observe carefully, instead of giving just numbers, I am giving in some kind of single asterisk. Did you observe? What is this magic of writing single asterisk? Means like, now if you make a call with zero arguments, one argument, two arguments, three arguments, any number of arguments, and it is working perfectly, right? The moment if I remove that asterisk, see what will happen. It will not take any number of arguments, doesn't work. So the asterisk will make that play that logic. So what this asterisk does, how many values you give, whatever the values, it will take like a tuple. That's the reason within that, if I ask the type of it, it is taking tuple every time. No matter if you pass zero arguments or any number of arguments, it treats like a tuple. So now in the same fashion, if I want to create like a custom print function, then what I can do? So I can define like, print function, which should take these arguments, star args. I go to each of the argument for each arg in args. See, whenever this argument you want to use within it, variable, you should not write a star. Here also, when I'm using, I'm not writing star. Only in the definition I'm writing star, that's it, before it. When I'm using, I want to use directly. Say like I want to make like some kind of print statement. Say like after that I want to make a empty print just to show. Now, similar to our print function, I could do some kind of mimicking. So you are using the same print to mimic print means slightly it will be different. But still, I could achieve whatever is being done, right? So the order in which I gave is different, but almost I got the same answer. In the same fashion, so if I go with like one more example, say, you see in this example, you will notice that. So from date time, import date time, this is a date time module for getting the date. I'm getting the current date and I'm doing these arguments. So no matter what you give, it will work. So this is all about variadic function. Means a function which can accept any number of arguments, even zero arguments also. In the same fashion, if you want this variadic function with a slight difference, because you remember in the initial function calls, I told that for a function, you can pass arguments in two ways, which is like by position arguments and keyword arguments. Now let's stress this kind of keyword arguments. Till now, you have passed like any number of ordinary variables, comma separated. What if you want to pass like a keyword arguments? For that, there is one more attribute called as keyword arguments. What it does is like, instead of a single star, you need to have two stars. So two asterisks. If you prepend with the two asterisks, but within that you should use directly only. Then if you pass like any number of arguments, it works. But the argument should be passed like this only. Means key equal to value, like that only we need to pass. Sir, what if I pass like values loosely? Say like my func of, say, same Uday I give, and if I give like say 55. So it's like a positional arguments, right? Positional args I passed. Will it work right now? It will throw an error. Means it will not take any positional arguments. For taking positional arguments, you should have positional arguments or like single star or individual variables. Hope you understood about this one. Now let's make the things much more complicated by handling both the cases simultaneously. Means if I want to handle both, single and multiple things, means both are periodic. One is a single star, other one is two stars. So then what will happen, sir? If you are passing values loosely, it will go to the single star, which is a given, which is a tuple. If you pass like a key equal to value, like a keywords, then it will go to this one, which is a dictionary. Now, if you see in this example, in the first case, I am having like a single value. Observe what happened. It is saying like this, that the given is like a tuple and feed in is like a dictionary. But in the next case, if I pass like a single value, when I pass directly, so it is taking it like a tuple value and the feed dictionary is empty. When I pass like a key equal to value, it is taking like a dictionary for less tuple is empty. So like that, it will work with all. And the beauty is like you can pass any number of arguments. And also the point is like you need, so you see here, the first three arguments are like direct and the remaining are like this. So it works like this. Now the question is, what if you pass one of the positional arguments at the end? Say like if I say 23 at the end, will it work? No. Means like every time you remember, whenever you have these combinations in terms of definition or calls, you should ensure that every time positional argument should be followed by the default arguments. So that is what you need to be aware. So though you have an asterisk, it doesn't matter. It will not take like that. So if you have a defined one more variable after that, then it can take it. So that is all about this one. So this is all about the variable arguments and non-variable arguments and others. And the last thing that you need to understand about, sometimes if you want to make only positional arguments, it should not take anything else, or like only the keyword arguments. For those cases in Python, so 3.8 onwards, they introduced two new things. So means like there are two things. Observe, there is a slash and there is a percentile. What is the difference, sir? So typically, if I define something like this, what do you mean by that? Three variables are ordinary positional arguments. The fourth one is a default argument. This is for sure, right? Means minimum you need to pass like three arguments. If I don't pass minimum three, it will throw an error. Beyond that, the fourth value you can pass in any way. But did you see that this function, whether you pass like a positional arguments or you pass like this, it works in both the cases? So whereas the same thing, if I do like a slight modification, in this case, instead of that, I'm adding one slash before it. What is this, sir? Means same like in the previous case, I passed two things. First time I passed all like a positional arguments. This last value as a default. In both the cases, it will work. Now, if I pass like, all the values as like a key is equal to value. So even C is equal to 20, I wrote. Same thing, but like a key equal to value. Did you see it is throwing an error? Means whatever this slash is telling is that whenever you are passing any values, so anything before slash should not be like a keyword arguments. So only things which are after slash should be keyword arguments when you are making a call. Or like ordinary also you can pass. So that is the option it is giving. Similarly, if I want to define one more logic, if I say here, if I take this example, if you observe, so what I'm defining, star, so sorry, slash if I gave mod. So you can make the third value as like direct or like this. But before values, you cannot make like a key equal to value. So that is a limitation. So similarly, you have this concept of star also. Star means like the same thing, but like before that, everything should be like a position. If you observe here in this case, a slash and a star. Before slash, if you place like a slash, before slash, everything should be position only. If you place like a asterisk, after asterisk, everything should be keyword only. But if there is anything middle that, they can be optional. Either way we can use. Now take an assignment to work on this entire thing and using the star also. So with this, I want to stop.